Why did everyone stop talking when she stepped off the truck? The laughter still echoed, sharp, confident, careless. The kind of laughter soldiers use when they've already chosen who doesn't belong. Lieutenant Kira Vance felt the heat first. Montana sun pressing through her uniform, the dust biting at her boots. Then came the stares, 17 of them, maybe more, eyes narrowing as if trying to solve a puzzle that didn't fit their picture of what a soldier should look like. $20 says she can't even field strip a rifle, someone said, loud enough for her to hear. Another voice cut through the noise. Make it 30. I'll give her 2 days before she requests a transfer. They didn't whisper, they wanted her to hear it, that was the point. Her boots hit the sun-baked concrete of Fort McKenzie with a hollow thud, a punctuation mark at the end of their disbelief. She adjusted the strap of her duffel, expression unreadable. Inside, her pulse beat steady, too steady, almost forced. It wasn't anger, it was something quieter, something heavier. Staff Sergeant Torres stepped out from the admin office, clipboard in hand, squinting against the light. His expression hovered somewhere between polite professionalism and the smirk of a man who'd already written the ending of her story. "Lieutenant Vance," he said, voice flat. "Welcome to the Advanced Marksmanship Training Center, Building 3, Bay 2, orientation at 1400. Washout rate 68%, even among combat vets." He didn't need to add the next part, the part written between the lines. "You'll be gone before the week is out." She saluted, short, perfect. "Understood, Staff Sergeant." When he handed her the folder, his eyes flicked to her left forearm, to the faint line of scar tissue just visible above her sleeve. He didn't mention it. Not yet. The walk to Building 3 felt longer than it should. Every step drew attention. Conversations hushed. Somewhere, a radio played a country song about heroes who didn't come home. Somewhere else, someone snickered again. Inside, the barracks smelled of floor wax and stale coffee, the universal scent of temporary belonging. 6 bunks per wall, most already claimed. Kira chose a corner bunk, farthest from the door, with clear lines of sight to both exits. Old habits, hard ones to break. She was folding her 3rd uniform shirt when a voice came from behind. "Don't take it personal," the woman said. "They do this to everyone new." Kira turned. The woman had dark hair, regulation bun, eyes that didn't flinch. She extended a hand. "Captain Nadia Reeves, 3rd week here. Fair warning, it doesn't get easier, just different kinds of hard." The handshake was firm, real. "Lieutenant Kira Vance," Kira replied. Nadia gestured toward the window, where the facility's massive range stretched across the valley, targets glinting at impossible distances. "See that 1,000-yard line," she said. "Most people wash out there. That's where the program stops being theory." Her tone softened slightly. "Word of advice, don't volunteer for anything your first week. The smaller your profile, the better your odds." Kira nodded, "Appreciate it." But she didn't mean it. She hadn't come here to stay invisible. Through the window, the range shimmered in the late afternoon sun. Targets so distant they might as well have been ghosts. "This is where the best come to get better," they said, "where the military sends shooters who already defy odds." Her reflection in the glass looked calm, controlled, but behind her eyes movement, a shadow of memory, a rooftop, a wind-worn rifle grip, a voice over comm saying Black Talon, confirm visual. She blinked it away. Not here, not yet. The 1400 briefing gathered 17 candidates in a beige classroom that smelled like old sweat and gun oil. Major Patrick Sutherland stood at the podium, the kind of man whose posture had become its own command. 20 years of authority carved into every word. "This program," he said, "exists for one reason: refinement. If you need training, you shouldn't be here. You're here to learn what excellence actually costs." A slide flickered behind him, numbers glowing in blue light. 68% washout. Average dismissal time, 11 days. Most common failure point, the 1,000-yard qualification. The room stayed silent. He let the numbers hang, then added, "Tomorrow at 600 we'll have a demonstration from 3 of our top graduates. They'll show you what the standard looks like. After that, anyone who wants can attempt the sequence. Not recommended." The faintest smirk crossed his face. "If you want to save us time and embarrass yourself early, though, volunteer." Somebody snorted quietly. Kira didn't move, but she felt the glances, the weight of pre-written assumptions pressing in like humidity. That night the barracks buzzed with whispered bets. 2 volunteers max. No way that lieutenant even tries. She'll be gone before Friday. Kira lay on her bunk, eyes tracing the slow spin of the ceiling fan. The scar on her left forearm itched, the way it always did before something significant. 3 years. That's how long since she'd last been called Black Talon. 3 years since a mission that didn't officially exist left 90 dead and 7 alive. Tomorrow would be interesting. Morning hit with the metallic slam of a footlocker and Tors shouting reveille. Kira was already awake, her uniform perfect, boots polished to the point of defiance. Discipline was its own armor. The Montana dawn bit cold, breath visible in the thin air as the candidates assembled at the range. The 1,000-yard course sprawled before them like a dare. Major Sutherland stood at the line. 3 demonstration shooters, he announced. Master Sergeant Chun, Gunnery Sergeant Davis, Chief Warrant Officer Brooks. Combined 50 years of specialized marksmanship. He paused. "Pay attention. This is what excellence looks like." The first shot cracked across the stillness, echoing off distant hills, then another, and another. 5 for 5, 200 yards, 400, 600. No misses. At 800, a few shots drifted, the kind of near misses that reminded everyone that perfection wasn't normal. By the time they reached 1,000, even the wind seemed to hold its breath. 5 shots. 4 hits. 1 miss. The major nodded. 71 out of 75, that's your benchmark. Then the invitation. Any volunteers? 17 soldiers suddenly found their boots fascinating. Nobody moved. Except one. Kira stepped forward, calm, controlled. "I'll volunteer." The air changed. Tors looked at Sutherland as if silently asking, "Do we stop this?" Sutherland studied her for 3 seconds that stretched into forever. "Very well, Lieutenant. Master Sergeant Chun will spot for you." As she walked to the firing line, the whispers returned, low, sharp, almost fearful. "She's gonna crash and burn." Stupid brave, though. The rifle felt heavier than it should. Different weapon, same ritual. She ran her checks. Chamber clear, scope alignment, bolt smooth, safety functional. Then silence. "Whenever you're ready," Sutherland said. Her breathing slowed, left leg bent, right extended. The rifle nestled into her shoulder like it belonged there. The first shot broke the air. "Hit center mass," Chun called out. Second shot. Third. Fourth. Fifth. All hits. 200 yards, perfect. No reaction, no smile. She simply moved to the 400 line, adjusted for drop, checked wind, fired. 5 more hits. Someone muttered, "Okay, maybe beginner's luck." At 600, the wind tugged harder. She compensated, waited for the right lull, the rhythm between gusts, and fired. 5 more hits. Now the murmurs faded into silence. At 800, the flags snapped like warnings. The air thickened with anticipation. She waited through 3 gust cycles before pressing the trigger. 1 hit. Then another. Then another. 5 all clean. By the time she stepped to the 1,000-yard line, the world felt narrowed to scope and breath and math. She exhaled halfway, found the still point between heartbeats, and pressed the trigger. The bullet flew for a full second before Chun's voice came, Hit, center mass. Another shot. Another confirmation. 5 for 5 at 1,000 yards. Silence, then disbelief, then applause that sounded more like awe than respect. Captain Reeves stood near the back, expression frozen. "You told me advisory roles," she said quietly when Kira returned the rifle. "You said some specialized training." Kira met her gaze evenly. "Both true." Reeves shook her head. "Not complete." Major Sutherland approached, eyes sharp now, his tone stripped of doubt. "Lieutenant Vance, report to my office at 1400 hours. We'll be having a conversation about your background." The others watched her go, some in silence, some whispering the same word, the one that would start circulating before nightfall. Black Talon. The sun was brutal by afternoon, cooking the barracks air into a stifling haze. Nadia Reeves sat on her bunk, laptop open, expression tight. "I tried looking you up," she said without preamble. "Standard databases, unit rosters, deployment logs. You've got 3 classified TDY periods that don't match anything in infantry records. 18 months of redacted history. That's not normal." Kira changed uniforms with the calm of someone who'd been accused before. "Temporary duty assignments happen." "Not ones that delete entire locations," Nadia replied. "Those are black site flags. Whatever you did, it's not infantry." Kira didn't deny it. She couldn't. She just buttoned her jacket and said, "Some things don't go on paper." "Yeah," Nadia muttered, "and some things leave scars that don't heal right." At 1400, Major Sutherland's office smelled of old coffee and cold suspicion. 3 instructors waited, Sutherland, Brooks, and Chun. "Sit, Lieutenant," the major said. He flipped through her file. "Standard infantry, 3 deployments, no sniper school, no advanced marksman qualifications, and yet you shoot a perfect sequence at 1,000 yards." She stayed still. "I received additional training not listed in standard records." Chun leaned forward. "That training wasn't Army sniper school. It was something else, something special." "I'm not authorized to discuss certain aspects of my background," she said evenly. Sutherland's expression tightened. "We have observers from allied nations here. You demonstrated capabilities that might be classified. That's a problem." She met his eyes. "If it wasn't within authorized parameters, sir, I wouldn't have volunteered." Brooks turned a tablet toward her. A photo, grainy, distant, unmistakable. A figure on a rooftop. A rifle braced against rubble. "This was Iraq, 3 years ago," Brooks said. "Operation details classified. 14 targets eliminated at impossible ranges. The shooter's code name Black Talon." The room went silent. Sutherland's voice dropped. "The resemblance in technique is concerning." Kira's response came steady. "I can't comment on classified operations I may or may not have participated in, sir." "Can't or woe?" "Both." The meeting ended because it couldn't go further. When she stepped outside, the wind carried the smell of oncoming rain, sharp, electric, inevitable. By nightfall, every candidate at Fort Mackenzie would know what Torres whispered after she walked past. "She's not here to learn," he said. "She's here to be found. And maybe, just maybe, to be called Black Talon one last time." The storm came fast. Lightning cracked over the mountains, thunder rolling down the valley like artillery. By 2200 hours, rain hammered the barracks roof with a fury that drowned every other sound. Most candidates pretended to sleep, but Kira knew the difference between rest and silence. Silence meant people were awake, thinking. Thinking about her. Someone whispered her name 3 bunks away, then the word that followed it. Black Talon. The name moved through the dark like smoke, shapeless, unstoppable. She lay still, staring at the faint light that leaked from the hallway, tracing the outline of her scar with one finger. She thought she buried that identity. that the wind and distance of 3 long years had erased it. She was wrong. The rain sounded like gunfire against the metal roof, sharp and rhythmic. And for a second she was somewhere else entirely, a different storm, a different night. Northern Iraq. Overwatch confirmed visual. Visual confirmed, wind 5 knots east, 2-second window. Send it. 14 targets, 7 hours, 90 men who never made it home. Her trigger had been steady, her conscience hadn't. The memory vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only the sound of rain and her own heartbeat. Morning brought gray light and mud. The storm had washed the air clean but left the ground heavy. Boots sank into it, slow, deliberate. Tor's voice cut through the drizzle. Ranges flooded, classroom instruction until further notice. Inside the briefing hall, humidity clung to the walls. The air smelled of wet uniforms and old coffee. Kira sat near the back, notebook closed, eyes on nothing. Around her, 17 bodies filled the room, physically present, mentally elsewhere. They all felt the same weight. Rumor. Sutherland entered mid-lecture, rainwater dripping from his field jacket. He didn't look at anyone but her. "Lieutenant Vance," he said quietly, "my office now." The walk across the courtyard was short, but the silence stretched long. Each step felt like an echo of the decision she'd made yesterday, when she pulled that trigger the 25th time. Sutherland's office was different now. The coffee smell replaced by something colder, formality. Chun and Brooks sat beside him again, their expressions unreadable. "Lieutenant," Sutherland began, "I've spoken to people with clearance higher than mine. They confirm parts of your record I can't discuss. They also confirm that you're operating under standing authorization." He leaned forward. "That means you're not just a student here, you're a ghost in plain sight." She didn't answer. Brooks broke the silence. "Why here, Vance? You don't need this program, so why walk into a place full of people trying to prove themselves?" Kira studied the pattern of rain, streaking down the window before speaking. "Because ghosts need anchors," she said softly. "Because sometimes the only way to feel human again is to start from the bottom and remember what it's like to earn something honestly." Chun exhaled slowly. "That's not the kind of answer they like in reports." "I'm not here for their reports," she said. Sutherland's tone shifted, still firm but no longer hostile. "General Hendricks confirmed you're cleared to continue, but understand this, your presence changes the dynamic here. You're a legend to some, a threat to others. Handle it carefully." "I always do, sir." He nodded once, dismissed. Outside, the rain had slowed to mist. The mountains stood shrouded in low clouds. Kira walked toward the range, empty now except for puddles glinting like mirrors. From behind her, boots splashed. Nadia caught up, hood pulled low, eyes sharp. "What happened?" she asked. Kira kept walking. "They confirmed I belong here." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give." Nadia stopped, frustration visible even through the fog. "You know what everyone's saying, that you're some kind of special operations recruiter, that your perfect score was a test not for you, for us." Kira turned. "Let them say what they want." "Fine, but rumors spread faster than truth, and you're running out of places to hide from either." Kira looked past her toward the range, the 1,000-yard line barely visible through mist. "There's nowhere left to hide," she said. By afternoon, the rain cleared. The range reopened. The instructors called for baseline evaluations, wind reading, range estimation, reaction drills. 17 candidates lined up. The atmosphere had changed. Laughter gone, respect cautious. Tors read off the roster. "Reeves, you're first." Nadia shot with textbook precision, slow, deliberate, reliable. When she finished, she glanced toward Kira, as if expecting judgment. Kira gave a small nod. Approval, professional, nothing more. Roar stepped up next. His earlier arrogance had softened. The shot groupings were tight but not clean. He grunted after the fifth round, frustrated. Wind's all over the place. Kira walked over, voice calm. It's not the wind, it's you fighting it. He frowned, meaning. You're trying to control something that can't be controlled. Wind isn't an enemy, it's part of the equation. He exhaled through his nose, thinking, never heard it put that way. You have now. He adjusted, fired again. The next hit landed center. He looked back, surprised. Kira didn't smile. She didn't need to. Sometimes silence was the best acknowledgement. Tors noticed. He muttered under his breath, guess she can teach too. That evening, the sky burned gold against the wet earth. Candidates gathered for chow in the mess hall. The noise was a mixture of cutlery and unspoken questions. Foster, the youngest, finally asked the one hanging in everyone's throat. Lieutenant Vance, he said carefully, is it true you were, on that Iraq mission? The entire hall froze. Even the ventilation hum seemed to pause. Kira didn't look up from her tray. Stories get larger than the truth, she said. Eat your food. Foster hesitated, then nodded. Yes, ma'am. But the moment he turned away, she saw his reflection in the stainless counter, eyes wide with the kind of awe reserved for myths. That night, Sutherland called another assembly. He stood at the front of the dim classroom, arms crossed, the projector flickering against the wall. Effective immediately, he announced. Lieutenant Vance will assist in technical coaching for advanced marksmanship. Her expertise will supplement instructor evaluation. Murmurs filled the room. Roar raised a hand. So she's what, an instructor now? Sutherland's gaze cut through the noise. She's whatever I say she is, and right now she's the best shooter on this base. You do well to learn from her. The room went still. Kira said nothing, just stepped back into the shadows near the rear wall. Later she found herself on the range again, long after curfew. The floodlights painted the target silver. The air was clean, sharp, the kind of stillness snipers lived for. She knelt, unpacked her rifle, and set it up without thinking. The ritual was muscle memory, soothing, dangerous. Wind flags barely moved, temperature steady, perfect conditions. But she wasn't here to shoot targets. She was here to quiet the noise. She sighted down the scope anyway. 1,000 yards away, the steel silhouette shimmered. Her breathing slowed. In, hold, out. Through the scope, the world narrowed until there was only the target, the reticle, and the heartbeat she'd learned to control. The trigger pressed. The echo rolled across the valley. Hit dead center. It didn't bring peace. It never did. Behind her, footsteps approached. Nadia's voice broke the silence. Couldn't sleep either. Kira didn't turn. Something like that. Nadia folded her arms, watching the target swing. That shot was clean, perfect wind call. Kira gave a dry laugh. Perfection's overrated. It hides mistakes. Maybe, or maybe it's what keeps people alive. The two women stood there in silence, the floodlights buzzing above them, the smell of gunpowder faint in the cool air. Finally, Nadia spoke again. You ever think about what it costs being that good? Kira lowered the rifle. Every day. By dawn, whispers had turned into something else. Not rumor, not awe, something closer to faith or fear. Tors found her outside the armory, filling a logbook. Major wants to see you, he said. We've got visitors, black SUV, no markings. Kira looked up. Visitors. He shrugged. High-clearance types, don't know who, but they asked for you by name. Her stomach tightened, but her face didn't change. Of course they did. Inside the administrative building, the air felt different, colder, more deliberate. 3 civilians stood beside General Marcus Hendricks, a man whose presence carried the weight of entire theaters of war. Lieutenant Vance, he said, nodding once. We've been briefed on your demonstration. It created interest. He gestured toward the civilians. These individuals represent joint agency coordination groups. They'd like a word. Kira saluted, then lowered her hand. Understood, sir. Hendrix's tone was calm, but his eyes weren't. You did something. Lieutenant reminded people what precision looks like when it's fused with discipline. That kind of performance doesn't stay quiet. The tallest civilian stepped forward. We have upcoming operations that require unique skills, skills like yours. Kira met his gaze, her voice even. I thought I retired those. He smiled, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. Retirement's a fiction, Lieutenant, especially for ghosts. For a moment the room felt smaller. Kira glanced toward the window, out toward the range, where the 1,000-yard target glinted in the rising sun. Sir, she said finally, before you ask me to be something again, tell me what happened to the others. Hendrix's silence was answer enough. That night back in the barracks, Kira sat on her bunk, rifle cleaned and cased, the scar on her forearm catching the dim light. Outside, wind whispered through the pine. She didn't need orders to know what was coming. The world had noticed her again. And ghosts once called, don't stay buried for long. The sky over Fort Mackenzie looked washed clean the next morning. Blue stretching forever, air sharp as broken glass. Most of the candidates were already on the range when Kira arrived, 17 uniforms in neat rows, rifles propped against shooting benches. The wind carried the scent of cordite and wet sage. Tours barked roll call. Sutherland watched from a distance, clipboard in hand, pretending not to be watching her. The storm had scrubbed more than just the air. It had cleared something between them, the mocking, the skepticism. What replaced it wasn't comfort, it was something heavier, respect laced with fear. Her first assignment as assistant instructor began with Lieutenant Morrison, a kid whose rifle weighed more than his confidence. His grouping had been scattered the day before, shots drifting unpredictably across the silhouette. Kira knelt beside him, voice calm but clipped. You're holding your breath too long. Let it go halfway, then fire. He exhaled shakily. Feels wrong to shoot mid-breath. It'll feel wrong until it works. Try it. He did. The next shot hit center mass. He blinked at the target, then at her. That easy. No, she said. Nothing worth learning ever is. He smiled, the kind of half-smile you see when a person realizes they might actually be capable of more than they believed. By midday, she'd rotated through 3 candidates, Morrison, Foster, and Hayes. Foster still struggled with wind calls, reading the flags but not the rhythm. Kira took the spotting scope and let the silence build between them. Then she said, stop looking at the flags, watch the dust. The dust, he asked. Flags tell you direction, dust tells you truth. He crouched, squinting toward the field. The sun had dried yesterday's mud into thin powder that swirled with each gust. He nodded, understanding dawning slow but sure. They fired, hit, then another, then a third. That's it, Kira said quietly. Wind isn't math, it's music. You just learn to listen. Foster's grin was boyish, genuine. Thanks, ma'am. Don't thank me, she said. Earn it again tomorrow. When it was Hayes's turn, the lesson changed. Her fundamentals were flawless, but time pressure wrecked her performance. 5 shots in 90 seconds, Chun called out. Hayes inhaled, fired, missed. The timer buzzed. Frustration rippled through her stance. Kira stepped closer, voice low. You're thinking too much. You're trying to outshoot the clock. I can't help it, Hayes said. The timer starts and everything I know just disappears. Kira handed her rifle back. Then stop trying to remember. Just breathe. Think of nothing but the trigger breaking clean. They ran it again. This time Hayes's shots clustered tighter. 90 seconds, all in the zone. When the timer beeped, she looked back, almost disbelieving. I didn't think I could. You could, Kira said softly. You just didn't know how to stop getting in your own way. The other instructors watched from a distance. Brooks leaned toward Sutherland, voice low. She's good, not just at shooting, at reading people. Sutherland didn't answer. His eyes followed Kira as she walked the line, her movements efficient, calm, and somehow heavier than they should be. She's not teaching marksmanship, Brooks said. She's teaching survival. Maybe that's what they sent her here for, Sutherland murmured. By late afternoon, the wind picked up again. Long shadows stretched across the range. The day's final drill was a 600-yard qualification under variable gusts. Tours called out times, shooter ready, fire. Candidates dropped prone, one after another. Kira stood behind them, eyes moving from shooter to target. Her tone shifted between command and compassion, never loud, never uncertain. Wait for the lull, Hayes. Good, follow through, Morrison. Foster, check elevation, don't fight it. Each correction was small, surgical. Each result, improvement. When the last rifle fell silent, the air smelled of powder and heat. Tours walked the line, inspecting targets. Average hit rate 75%, best day yet. Sutherland nodded. That's progress, remember it. But when his gaze found Kira, something flickered behind his eyes, a thought he wasn't saying. He dismissed the candidates. They filed out, chatter low, energy drained. Kira stayed behind, collecting brass. She found peace in the repetition: kneel, pick up, drop into the bin, order in chaos. Then a voice broke the quiet. You're making us all look bad. Roar stood behind her, rifle slung across his shoulder, expression unreadable. Kira looked up. That's not my intention. He shrugged. Intentions don't matter, results do. He hesitated, then added, I used to think people like you just got lucky. Now I know better. That's growth, she said simply. He laughed once. Don't expect me to like it. I don't, she said, standing. Liking it isn't part of the job. That night the base quieted under a sky full of stars. Kira sat outside the barracks, the cold biting through her sleeves. Beside her, Nadia lit a cigarette, one of the last she had left. You ever sleep? Nadia asked. Sometimes, Kira said, when I forget what I've seen. Nadia exhaled smoke, watching it drift upward. I saw Hendricks talking to those civilians yesterday, looked serious. It was. They're not normal intel people, are they? No, Kira said quietly. They're the kind that write missions nobody admits exist. Nadia studied her, and they want you back. Kira didn't answer, but silence was answer enough. Nadia flicked ash onto the concrete. You could say no. I could. Will you? Kira's jaw tightened. That's the problem, I don't know if I can. The wind shifted. The stars blurred behind thin clouds. Once they name you, Kira said after a moment, you don't get to unname yourself. You're theirs, forever. Nadia's voice softened. What name? Kira hesitated. Black Talon. The words hung in the cold like smoke, visible, fragile, real. Nadia didn't speak again. She didn't need to. The next morning came too soon. Range drills, classroom lectures, debrief reports, the normal rhythm of the base, all pretending that everything wasn't quietly changing. But change was coming anyway. By afternoon, the black SUV was back. This time it waited at the edge of the range, engine off, windows tinted. Sutherland found her before the session ended. Lieutenant, he said, his tone carrying more weight than rank alone, they're asking for you again. She nodded, set her rifle down, and followed. Inside the conference room, General Hendricks was waiting, alone this time. A single folder sat on the table between them. He didn't waste words. Lieutenant Vance, you've been offered reinstatement under classified directive, 18-month term, rotational deployments, direct oversight by Joint Command. It's voluntary. Kira's throat felt dry. And if I decline? Then you finish this program and return to advisory status. No penalties, no repercussions. She met his eyes, but the calls still come, don't they? He paused, yes. She looked down at the folder. The cover was stamped with a single phrase, Operation CROSSMARK. I'm not sure I have that person in me anymore, she said. Hendrix's tone softened, rare, almost human. That person kept 90 men from dying, Lieutenant. Maybe the world still needs her. Kira exhaled slowly. And maybe she's tired of saving people who don't know they needed saving. He didn't argue, he didn't need to. He just slid the folder across the table. You have 72 hours. Then he stood and left, leaving her alone with the echo of her own heartbeat. Later, back at the range, the wind had turned cold again. Kira opened the folder in private, its contents sparse but heavy. Maps, coordinates, faces, targets. Each one a name that would never make the news. Each one a reminder of who she used to be. She traced a finger over the ink, the edges of her scar catching the light. Her reflection in the rifle's scope looked older somehow, the kind of age that doesn't show in skin but in the eyes. Behind her, Nadia's voice broke the quiet. I saw the SUV leave. Kira closed the folder. You always notice things you shouldn't. Occupational hazard, Nadia said, walking closer. So, are they sending you somewhere? They're asking, Kira said. And I don't know. Nadia studied her for a long moment. You do know, you just don't like the answer. Kira smiled faintly. You'd make a good interrogator. Comes from being ignored too long, Nadia said. You start listening to things people don't say. The wind tugged at Kira's hair, carrying the metallic scent of gun oil and coming rain. Whatever you choose, Nadia said finally, make sure it's your choice, not theirs. Kira nodded, though she knew choices like this were never really hers. That night she walked the range alone again. No rifle this time, just silence, the kind that weighed more than any weapon. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the world was preparing to call her name again, not Kira Vance, but the other one. The one whispered in operations rooms and briefings that began with locked doors and ended with unmarked graves. Black Talon. She looked up at the stars and wondered how many times she'd already died under that name. How many times she'd survived when maybe she shouldn't have. And whether survival, after all this, was the same thing as living. How do you say goodbye to something you never really belonged to? The question followed Kira all week. She taught, corrected, advised, every movement precise, every word measured. But underneath the discipline lived a slow ache, the knowledge that each lesson she gave might be her last. The mornings began before dawn. Fog pooled across the valley, and the range lights glowed like low stars. Kira moved among the candidates, adjusting elbows, tightening slings, teaching patience disguised as posture. She never raised her voice. She didn't have to. Authority carried quiet now. Foster was the first to notice the difference. You're teaching like someone who's already leaving, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. Kira didn't answer right away. She looked toward the horizon, a gray line where night was still deciding whether to leave. Maybe I am, she said. Doesn't mean you stop listening. He smiled, awkward but earnest. You'll tell us when you go, right? She almost said no. Instead, she said nothing at all. By midday, the sun burned the fog away. Heat shimmered above the 1,000-yard berm. Sutherland watched from the control tower, arms folded, a faint shadow of unease on his face. He'd seen soldiers leave before, but not like this, not with the weight of something unspoken hanging over the base like humidity. Brooks joined him, binoculars dangling from his hand. She's training them to replace her, he said quietly. Sutherland didn't look away from the range. No, she's training them to survive her absence. Below, Kira knelt beside Nadia, who was sighting through her scope. Breath control, Kira said. You're rushing the exhale. Nadia frowned. Feels like the wind's taunting me. Wind doesn't taunt, Kira said. It reminds. Nadia pulled the trigger. The shot rang clean, the steel target swinging with a satisfying clang. See, Kira said. Sometimes all the world needs is a breath you don't waste. That evening, the recruits gathered around the mess hall tables, exhaustion softening the edges of rivalry. The chatter was light, half jokes, half relief. Foster told a story about his first training drop and how he'd landed in a cactus patch. Laughter broke the tension like a snapped wire. Even Kira smiled. It felt foreign, like rediscovering a muscle she'd forgotten how to use. Nadia noticed. That's twice this week, she said. You're starting to look almost human again. Almost, Kira replied. The noise faded as Sutherland entered, clipboard in one hand, coffee in the other. He scanned the room until his eyes found her. Lieutenant Vance, he said, General Hendricks requests your presence at 2200 hours. The room fell silent. Nobody asked why. They already knew. The office lights hummed faintly. Rain tapped against the window again, the kind of gentle storm that didn't break anything, just reminded you it could. Hendricks sat behind his desk, uniform jacket open, eyes tired but sharp. He gestured toward the chair across from him. Sit, Lieutenant. She did. Operation Crossmark, he began, sliding the folder forward. You've read the outline. What you don't know is that it's moved up. You deploy in 4 days. Kira's jaw clenched. Why me? You know why, he said simply. We need a shooter who doesn't miss and a conscience that won't let the wrong person die. That's a dangerous combination. It always has been. He leaned back, the leather creaking softly. Intel confirms a rogue cell operating outside Mosul. Former allies turned contractors. They're targeting humanitarian convoys under UN cover. We need precision. Quiet. No collateral. She stared at the folder, the word Mosul bleeding through the manila like a ghost she'd already met. Back there again, she murmured. Hendricks's voice softened. You've walked those streets. You understand the terrain and the cost. That's why you're the one they asked for. She looked up, and if I say no, then someone less qualified says yes. Silence. Finally, she said, what's the extraction window? 48 hours after mission complete. Local assets only. No name, no trace. He hesitated, then added quietly, and this time no backup call signs. No Black Talon, just you. The words hit harder than any order. No alias, no armor, just her. Back at the barracks, the night air tasted like cold iron. She sat on the edge of her bunk, cleaning her rifle one last time. The ritual steadied her hands. Across the room, Nadia packed gear into a duffel. She didn't speak until the 4th zipper closed. So that's it, she said. You're going. Kira looked up. How do you know? You didn't eat dinner. You only skip meals when you're about to disappear. Kira smirked faintly. You notice too much. Someone has too, Nadia said. They'll act surprised when they find out, but not me. You won't tell them. No, but you should. Kira shook her head. It's easier this way. For who? The question lingered, unanswered. Morning brought drills again, same as always. The recruits lined up, unaware that one of them would be missing by the week's end. Kira moved among them, every correction carrying a trace of farewell. When Foster hit 3 consecutive bullseyes, she clapped a hand on his shoulder. Remember what that feels like, she said. Not the shot, the calm before it. When Hayes fumbled a reload, she steadied her hands. Slow is smooth. Smooth becomes fast. You're getting there. And when Nadia hesitated between targets, Kira whispered, trust the instinct you earned. By afternoon, the line was perfect, not in skill but in silence. Everyone focused, everyone listening. It felt, for a fleeting moment, like peace. That evening they found her by the supply shed, staring out over the valley. The sun bled orange behind the peaks. Foster approached first, hesitant. "Ma'am, rumor says you're leaving." Kira didn't turn. "Rumor's efficient." "So it's true." She nodded once. Nadia stepped closer. "When?" "Soon." The silence that followed wasn't surprise. It was grief disguised as respect. Foster swallowed hard. "Are you coming back?" She looked out at the mountains, then at them. "If I can." Nadia's voice trembled slightly. "Is it dangerous?" "All the things worth doing are." They didn't argue. They didn't plead. They just stood there with her until the sun vanished. When they finally left, Kira stayed, the wind tugging at her jacket, the horizon fading into night. She whispered to no one, "Don't make me regret teaching you how to aim." At 2200, the SUV waited again, headlights cutting through darkness. She climbed in without a word. The driver didn't look back. Neither of them spoke during the long descent through the valley roads. When they reached the airstrip, a transport plane idled under floodlights, engines whining softly. A crew chief saluted. "Lieutenant Vance, manifest cleared, equipment stowed." She nodded, slinging her rucksack over one shoulder. Before boarding, she paused, one last glance at the mountains. For a moment, she thought she saw the range lights flicker like distant stars. Maybe they were watching. Maybe they were. She whispered, "Keep breathing, dust and wind," then stepped into the plane. Inside, the cabin lights were dim. Cargo netting rattled as the engine spooled up. A single seat waited near the bulkhead, her seat. Beside it, a sealed case with a label she recognized instantly. Prototype XM2010, modified. The past, waiting for her hands again. She hesitated before opening it. Her reflection stared back in the polished barrel. It wasn't the same face that once answered to Black Talon. It was older, softer, tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. She ran a thumb along the metal, then locked the case. "Not yet," she whispered. "Not until I know who I am when this is over." Hours later, as the plane cut through clouds, she leaned her head back and closed her eyes. Voices from Fort Mackenzie drifted through memory, laughter, instruction, the small humanity she'd found again among rookies. Foster asking if she'd tell them when she left. Nadia reminding her she could still say no. Sutherland's restrained respect. They had become her tether without realizing it. And now she was flying toward another place where tethers didn't survive. She woke to the sound of turbulence and a voice over the intercom. 10 minutes to drop zone. The ramp lights glowed red. Rain lashed the fuselage. Somewhere below, Iraq waited, the same land that had written her first scar. She tightened her harness and checked her gear. Every buckle, every strap, the ritual of someone who knows the margin for error is zero. As the green light blinked on, the jumpmaster raised a hand. "On you, Lieutenant." Kira stepped to the ramp, wind roaring around her. The world stretched out beneath, endless darkness scattered with faint, living lights. For a heartbeat, she hesitated. Not from fear, from memory. Then she whispered what she always whispered before the fall. "Let the wind decide." And she jumped. The parachute opened with a crack. Silence replaced the roar. Below her, the Tigris shimmered silver in the moonlight. The land looked peaceful from this height, a lie she'd learned to read. She drifted toward the extraction point, knees bent, mind calm. And somewhere between sky and earth, she understood the truth she'd spent years avoiding. You can leave a battlefield, but the battlefield never really leaves you. The hangar smelled of oil and silence. Floodlights hummed above, painting long shadows across metal crates and open maps. A single table sat at the center, one lamp, one dossier, one woman standing too still for comfort. Lieutenant Kira Vance. Or maybe again Black Talon. She didn't correct the men who used the name under their breath. Sometimes ghosts needed to answer when called. Target compound here, the analyst said, tracing a red marker across satellite photos. Northern sector of Mosul, 4 clicks from the river. Cell leader identified as Qasim al-Rahim. Ex-contractor, former intelligence liaison, turned mercenary. Kira leaned closer. The faces in the photos were just pixels and shadows, but her eyes caught the details that others missed: the position of the rifles, the angle of the sandbags, the way one man's wrist still bore a regulation-grade watch. "These aren't mercenaries," she said quietly. "They're trained." The analyst hesitated. "How trained?" "Tier 1 trained." The room went still. The mission commander, Colonel Baird, cleared his throat. "Your tasking remains the same. Single overwatch, long-range precision, silent neutralization of leadership. No collateral, no support once deployed. You have 12 hours. Kira nodded. "Insertion point." "Delta 1, abandoned factory south of the highway. You'll move by night, establish hide at Grid 47 Alpha. From there, command authority is yours." He paused. "And Lieutenant, whatever you were before, leave it on the ground when you land." She almost smiled. "That's not how ghosts work, sir." She packed her gear methodically. Every motion measured, deliberate. Suppressor, bolt assembly, wind meter, range cards. A small silver locket, the only unmilitary thing she owned. Inside it, a photo folded too many times to recognize. By midnight, the hangar was empty except for her and the hum of distant engines. She closed her eyes and listened. The sound of rotors, the smell of fuel, the pulse that always came before the fall. The world was about to shrink again, to scope, wind, distance, and breath. The helicopter skimmed low over the desert, running dark. No lights, no chatter, just the heavy rhythm of blades cutting air. Across from her sat 2 local guides, eyes fixed forward, faces unreadable. They didn't know her name, only her mission. That was how it had to be. She stared out the open door. The desert below glowed faintly in the moonlight, rippling like the surface of a sleeping ocean. Every gust carried the scent of dust and burned oil. Every gust whispered memory. 3 years ago. Same country, different war. The radio then had crackled with her call sign. Black Talon, wind shift 35 east. Confirm visual. She had confirmed. She had fired. And 14 men had disappeared from the world. Now she was back to erase another ghost, maybe her own this time. 30 seconds, the crew chief shouted. Kira checked her gear one last time. Rifle secured, harness locked, mind silent. The door opened. Wind hit her like an old friend she never wanted to see again. Green light. She stepped out into the dark. The chute opened clean. The ground rose slow. Her boots hit sand with a soft thud. She crouched immediately, gathering the canopy, burying it under loose earth. Then silence. The kind that doesn't exist anywhere except war zones. The kind filled with distant dogs barking and generators humming miles away. Through the NVG glow, the landscape stretched pale and endless. She moved. Every step calculated, every breath measured. The rhythm returned, not walking, not crawling, but gliding through shadow. By 200 hours, she reached the ridge overlooking the compound. Through her scope, the world narrowed into focus. 3 structures, 1 communications tower, guards packing with precision, not sloppy, not civilian. Professional. Confirmed, she whispered into her throat mic. Pattern patrols, 4-minute cycles. A faint crackle answered. Copy, Talon, adjusting drone to high altitude. You are green on autonomy. The call sign slipped out without thought. Black Talon. It felt heavier now, like armor that didn't fit anymore. She settled into her position. Sand shifted beneath the mat. Wind 3 knots southeast, temperature dropping, visibility perfect. Through the lens, a figure stepped into view, tall, bearded, posture upright. Qasim al-Rahim. He paused near the central doorway, speaking to someone in the shadows. For a moment, Kira's pulse faltered. The other man, the one in the doorway, wore U.S. tactical gear. Her breath caught. She zoomed in. The insignia had been scraped off, but the cut of the vest, the scope mount, unmistakable. American. She whispered, command, confirm Allied units in target area. Silence. Then negative, Talon, you're alone. No friendly forces on grid. Her stomach turned cold. The man in U.S. gear handed Qasim a satchel, heavy, metallic. They shook hands. Ex-contractors, she thought, no worse. Traitors. She watched the exchange, waiting for confirmation that never came. Time slowed. Through the scope, she saw details the rest of the world missed. The tension in Qasim's jaw, the nervous tremor in the American's fingers. Fear, guilt, agreement. Her finger found the trigger. Then movement. A child, barefoot, maybe 8 years old, stepped out from behind the building carrying a metal pail. He walked straight through the crosshairs. Kira froze. Her breath stuttered. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She hadn't seen the boy on recon. No mention of civilians in the briefing. Command, she whispered, voice tight. Non-combatant presence confirmed. Abort window open. Static, then the same voice, colder. Negative, abort. Execute primary. Child in field of fire. Collateral not confirmed. Execute. Her finger trembled. The boy bent to pick up something, a loose piece of wire, right in front of Qasim's knee. Execute. She closed her eyes for half a breath. Then exhaled. The shot broke. The sound was swallowed by distance, but inside her headset, silence screamed. Target down. Qasim collapsed instantly. The boy flinched, fell, but didn't bleed. He froze like a statue, shock, not injury. She pulled back from the scope, chest tight. Primary neutralized, she said softly. No confirmed civilian casualties. Copy, Talon. Proceed to secondary objective. Her hands shook once, then steadied. Professional reflex. Human rebellion buried under orders. An hour later, she crawled from the hide site. The wind had shifted again, cooler now, carrying the faint smell of diesel and iron. She moved toward the extraction ridge, every sense stretched thin. That's when she heard it, faint, metallic clicks. Not from her. She rolled instantly, citing the sound. A figure emerged from the darkness 20 meters away, face hidden behind goggles, rifle leveled. Identify, she called. The answer came in English. Drop the weapon, Talon. Her heart stopped. She recognized the voice. Sergeant Cole, she said. The man stepped closer, lowering his rifle slightly. Didn't think you'd come back here. You shouldn't be here, she said. Neither should you. He pulled off his goggles. His eyes were tired, hollow. Orders changed. Lines blurred. We adapt. You're working for them, she said. I'm working to survive. Kira's voice hardened. By selling coordinates that get aid workers killed. Cole flinched but didn't deny it. It's not that simple. It never is. He took another step closer. You don't have to pull the trigger again, Kira. Walk away. Nobody has to know. Her rifle stayed trained on him. I already pulled it once tonight. Then don't make it twice. Wind swept between them, carrying dust and memory. For a long moment, they were two ghosts caught in the same graveyard. Then somewhere behind Cole, headlights flared, trucks approaching, armed silhouettes jumping down. Kira's comm crackled, multiple hostiles inbound, exfil compromised, move, Talon, move. She didn't think, she fired. Cole dropped before he could turn. No hesitation. No victory either. Just survival. She ran. The desert swallowed sound. Her boots cut across loose rock, lungs burning. Bullets tore through sand behind her. She dove behind a ridge, returned fire, precise, methodical, emotionless. 3 targets down, 2 more scattering. When silence returned, she was alone again. Heart pounding, breath ragged. The kind of silence that followed every necessary sin. Extraction came at dawn. The helicopter appeared out of the sun, blades slicing gold through the haze. She climbed aboard without looking back. Hendrix's voice greeted her through the comms. Mission complete, clean and efficient, Lieutenant. She stared out the window at the shrinking landscape. Efficient, she repeated, sure. He didn't hear the bitterness under the word. Hours later, debrief. Sterile room, metal chair, the smell of burnt coffee. A man in a suit, the same one who'd smiled back at the base, typed notes without looking up. Primary target neutralized, he said. Secondary eliminated under hostile engagement, minimal footprint, outstanding work. She didn't respond. He finally glanced at her. Something on your mind, Lieutenant. Kira leaned back, voice steady but low. There was a child. You didn't mention that in the intel brief. He shrugged. Collateral projection under 1%. Mission parameters remained valid. 1% still bleeds, she said. The man smiled faintly. That's why we hire professionals like you, to make sure it doesn't. She stood abruptly. Am I dismissed? You are, he said, for now. Outside, the airfield baked under the sun. The sand glittered like shards of glass. She walked until the noise of engines faded, until there was nothing left but wind and her own shadow stretching long across the ground. For the first time in years, her hands shook not from fear but from memory. She could still see the boy's eyes through the scope. Wide, innocent. Alive for now. She whispered, don't remember me. Then she turned toward the horizon, the heat shimmering like ghosts rising from the earth. And somewhere deep inside, the voice she'd buried, the one called Black Talon, whispered back. You never really left. The air in Virginia was supposed to feel different. Cleaner, safer. But when Kira stepped off the plane, the wind still smelled like dust and oil and the faint metallic taste of regret. Home was supposed to be quiet. Instead, it was just another kind of loud, the kind that lived inside her head. Fort Belvoir. Gray skis, endless concrete. The kind of place that tried to look like control and felt like confinement. They put her in a temporary housing unit near the edge of the base. Sterile walls, no photos, no noise except the low hum of the ventilation system. On the desk, a debrief packet. 3 pages of language that turned blood into numbers. Collateral risk, 0.3%. Mission success, 100%. She read it twice, then a third time. The percentages meant nothing. The silence of the child's eyes meant everything. She folded the report carefully, set it in the drawer and locked it. That was supposed to be closure. It was. Her first night back, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw sand. Not the soft kind, the kind that burned, cut, remembered. She tried to drown it in noise, the hum of the fridge, the ticking of the wall clock, the mechanical rhythm of a base that didn't care who came home changed. None of it helped. At 300, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands. Steady, always steady. Even when the rest of her was. The knock came just before dawn. 2 raps, firm, familiar. She opened the door to find Nadia Reeves standing there, duffel slung over her shoulder, hair loose for the first time Kira had ever seen. Hope I'm not early, Nadia said. Kira blinked, half-smile forming. What are you doing here? Got reassigned, Nadia said, stepping inside. They're expanding the training program. I asked to be placed nearby. Heard you landed last night. You heard, Kira repeated softly. Nadia shrugged. People talk. You should know you're the story they can't stop telling. Kira poured coffee without answering. The silence stretched. Finally Nadia asked, was it bad? Kira set the cup down. They never send you anywhere good. Days turned into weeks. Kira went through the motions, physicals, psych evals, equipment returns. Each appointment felt like a script written for someone else. How are you sleeping? Fine. Any flashbacks? No. Do you feel safe returning to normal activity? Yes. She lied with precision, the same precision she used to aim. Outside, life moved forward, soldiers jogging in formation, officers shouting cadence, the smell of fuel and sweat and purpose. Inside, she stood still. The one thing she'd learned after years in shadows, stillness was more dangerous than chaos. One afternoon, a memo arrived. Mandatory follow-up debrief, 1500 hours. Location, Building 14B. Officer in charge, Colonel Marcus Hendricks. She hadn't seen his name since Iraq. The debrief room was the same sterile gray as before. Hendricks waited behind the table, flanked by two civilians in suits, the kind who never wore rank but owned the truth anyway. He gestured for her to sit. Lieutenant, he said, welcome home. She nodded once. You've had time to recover. Define recover. He ignored that. We've completed analysis on Operation Crossmark. Officially, full success. No civilian casualties. Kira's jaw tightened. That's not true. The taller civilian smiled faintly. Our satellite confirmed no fatalities other than targets. There was a child, she said. A local non-combatant, the man replied smoothly. He fled before engagement. You made the correct call. I almost didn't. But you did, he said. That's what separates you from the rest. Her eyes stayed on Hendricks. Why was there a U.S. operative on site? Cole was supposed to be dead. The other civilian shifted uncomfortably. Hendricks sighed. Cole went off-grid last year, contracted privately. We didn't know he was tied to Qasim until you engaged. You used me as bait, she said quietly. No, Hendricks replied. We used you as certainty. Her voice dropped. There's a difference. He didn't answer. When they finally dismissed her, she walked straight past the checkpoint, past the barracks, and into the woods behind the motor pool. The trees were bare. Wind cut through the branches like whispers. She sat against a fallen log, rifle-calloused fingers buried in the dirt. That's where Nadia found her an hour later. You missed chow, Nadia said, crouching beside her. They said you were at debrief. Kira didn't look up. They said the mission was perfect. Nadia frowned. Was it? No, Kira said. It was efficient. That's not the same thing. No, Kira said again. It never is. Over the next few days, she tried to return to routine morning PT, range maintenance, admin work. The motions helped for a while. Then came the dreams. Not the loud kind, not gunfire, not explosions, the quiet kind. A boy standing in the desert with a metal pail. A hand she didn't take. A rifle that refused to miss. Each morning she woke before dawn, drenched in sweat, pulse racing. She stopped checking the time. One morning she went back to the range, alone. Fog rolled low across the ground. Targets hung motionless, waiting. She unpacked her rifle, the same model she used in Iraq, and set it on the bench. No orders, no observers, no purpose. Just distance and silence. She fired once. Hit. Again. Hit. Again. Still perfect. She lowered the rifle and whispered, "Why can't I miss when it matters most?" Later that afternoon, she found a letter slipped under her door. Unmarked. No seal. Just her name, handwritten in small, even strokes. Inside, a single sheet of paper. He's alive. A photo followed, grainy, distant. The boy, the same face, the same scar on his cheek. Below it, coordinates. Northern Iraq, refugee district. No signature. Her heart hammered once, twice. She looked out the window at the gray Virginia sky and realized she'd been holding her breath since the desert. Alive. He was alive. For the first time in months, she felt something break, not pain, not fear, hope. She took the photo to Hendricks the next morning. He frowned, examining it under the fluorescent light. Where did this come from? I found it under my door. He exhaled. Could be manipulation, psychological pressure, someone testing your resolve. Or it's real, she said. He shook his head. You're not authorized to pursue this. Let intelligence handle it. She stared at him, like they handled coal. That ended the conversation. For the next 3 nights, she didn't sleep. She spread maps across the floor of her quarters, old recon charts, new satellite prints she wasn't supposed to have. The coordinates matched a known refugee corridor just north of Mosul. If the boy was there, he wasn't safe. By the 4th night, the decision was already made. Before dawn, she packed her gear. Minimal, portable, silent. She wrote a note for Nadia. Don't look for me, don't report it. Some things need fixing off the record. Then she placed her badge on the desk beside the debrief folder and walked out. No alarms. No goodbyes. Just the sound of boots on wet asphalt. By the time the base realized she was gone, her trail was already cold. Military flights didn't question credentials stamped special assignment, especially when the name on them was Black Talon. The flight to Istanbul was long and sleepless. She stared out the window, watching clouds roll by, the earth far below peaceful from a distance, cruel up close. Somewhere between oceans, she whispered to herself, if he's alive, I'll find him. If he's not, I'll stop pretending I am. When she landed, the terminal buzzed with chaos. Soldiers, aid workers, people searching for meaning in motion. She moved through it like smoke. No uniform, no insignia. Just purpose. Outside, a black market driver waited with a cardboard sign that read K. She climbed into the car. Destination, he asked. She handed him the coordinates. He glanced at them, then at her. Dangerous place. I've seen worse. The driver studied her face, calm, distant, too still. You soldier. She shook her head, not anymore. But even as she said it, she felt the lie settle in her chest. Once you've worn the name, it doesn't wash off. That night, as the city lights of Mosul flickered ahead in the distance, Kira reached into her pack and pulled out the folded photograph. The boy's eyes stared back, alive, unbroken. Somewhere in that image, she thought she saw redemption. Or maybe just a reason to keep breathing. She closed her eyes and whispered, I'm coming. And for the first time since the desert, her heartbeat sounded like hope. The city didn't sound like it used to. Mosul was quieter now, but not peaceful, the kind of quiet that hums beneath the skin, where memory still echoes louder than traffic. Kira stepped out of the car and pulled her scarf tighter against the dust. The driver didn't wait. He knew better. Outsiders lingered here at their own risk. The streets were a maze of cracked concrete, half-rebuilt shops, and children chasing soccer balls through potholes. She walked slow, eyes scanning faces, corners, reflections. Every detail mattered. The coordinates in her hand pointed toward a district known as Hayy al-Isla. Refugee zone, minimal security, maximum ghosts. She passed a bakery, the smell of warm bread mixing with diesel fumes. Old women bargained in voices that carried both fatigue and defiance. No one noticed her. That was the goal. But as she turned into a narrow alley, a voice in Arabic called out behind her. Madame, you are foreign. She turned, hand instinctively brushing the concealed holster under her jacket. A man, thin, middle-aged, wearing an aid worker's vest, jogged toward her holding a clipboard. "You are with the NGOs?" he asked. "Not exactly," she said. "Then you shouldn't be here," he warned. "These streets forget people." Kira looked past him toward the children playing near a wall pockmarked with old bullet holes. One of them, a boy with a scar across his cheek, turned just long enough for her to see his eyes. Her breath caught. It was him. For a moment the world narrowed to that single image. The boy, alive, laughing, chasing a ball that rolled too close to the road. Then a truck engine roared nearby. He froze. Kira's instincts screamed before logic could catch up. She moved. A shot cracked from somewhere beyond the rooftops, single, clean, meant for precision. The boy dropped to the ground, unharmed. The bullet punched a hole in the wall inches above him. Kira spun toward the direction of the shot, drawing her sidearm. "Get the children inside," she yelled in Arabic. The aid worker dove for cover, shouting for the others. Kira scanned the rooftops, sunlight glinting off a scope 2 buildings over. Sniper. Professional. She ducked behind a crate, breath steady, eyes narrowing. "Of course," she muttered, "it was never about coincidence." The next shot hit the dirt near her boot, controlled, warning. She raised her head just enough to catch a glimpse through the reflection of a broken window. A figure's light body armor, local garb, but the rifle grip familiar. U.S. model. She exhaled slowly, so they sent someone to clean it up. Within seconds, she'd mapped her options: narrow alley to the east, blind approach to the west, civilians in every direction. Collateral was not an option. She slipped her pistol into her belt, grabbed a metal sheet from the debris pile beside her, and angled it toward the sunlight. A flash of glare shot toward the rooftop. The sniper hesitated. That was enough. Kira sprinted left, disappearing into shadow. By the time the sniper reacquired position, she was gone. She ducked into a half-collapsed building 2 blocks over, heartbeat steady now. Through a hole in the wall, she watched the street where the boy had been. He was gone, safe, at least for now. Her mind spun. Someone had eyes on her arrival before she'd even crossed the border. She checked her comms, still dark. No signal, deliberate. Whoever sent the photo wanted her here. Whoever pulled the trigger wanted her erased. 2 different agendas. Same battlefield. That night, she stayed in an abandoned apartment overlooking the river. No lights, no movement, just the flicker of lanterns in the distance and the murmur of a city pretending not to remember. She cleaned her sidearm mechanically, listening to the hum of generators across the water. For a moment, she let herself think of the boy again, the way he'd looked up at the sound of her voice, unafraid, curious. He didn't recognize her. Maybe that was mercy. She whispered, "You shouldn't have survived me." Outside, thunder rolled far off, desert storms that never reached the city. Back in Virginia, alarms were already ringing. Nadia Reeves slammed a file onto Hendrix's desk. "You lost her." Hendrix didn't look up. She signed out under authorized clearance. Authorized by who? He exhaled. By the system she built. Nadia's hands clenched. "You think she'll stop at observation?" "I think she's following something we missed," Hendrix said quietly. "And I think whatever she finds will decide what happens to the rest of us." Nadia leaned over the desk. "Then we need to find her before they do." "They?" Hendrix asked. "The same people who sent that photo," she said. "You really think that boy picture was an accident?" Back in Mosul, Kira followed the map she'd built in her head, the sniper's line of sight, the likely escape path, the angles of fire. The pattern led her to a rooftop near the edge of the district. Spent casing still warm. Footprints in the dust. One drag mark, a heavy case carried away in haste. She crouched examining the brass, match grade, NATO issue. A whisper of memory brushed her mind, Cole's rifle, same caliber, same make. Different shooter, same supplier. She felt it in her bones now. This wasn't just cleanup. This was a message. Someone wanted her to look deeper. She found the aid worker again the next morning. He was packing medical crates into the back of a van. "You saw what happened," she said. He nodded warily. "Yes, you brought trouble." "I didn't bring it," she said. "I followed it." He hesitated, then motioned her closer. "The boy, his name is Samir. He stays at the clinic near the bridge, but people watch there now, men who don't belong." "Who runs the clinic?" "A woman named Dr. Noor. She helps the refugees. You'll find her easily. She argues with everyone." Kira smiled faintly. "Sounds familiar." The clinic was a narrow building with peeling paint, and a line of mothers waiting outside. Inside, antiseptic mixed with the smell of sweat and exhaustion. Dr. Noor was exactly as described, tall, sharp-eyed, voice brisk. "You're American," she said without preamble. "You want to help, then carry supplies, not questions." Kira held out the photo. "I'm looking for this boy." Noor's tone softened. "Samir, he's safe, but he doesn't talk much." "Where is he now?" "In the back room, drawing as always." Kira followed her through a narrow hallway. And there he was. The same boy. Scarred cheek, dirt-streaked hands, eyes too old for his age. He looked up from his paper. Their eyes met. Something inside her broke and rebuilt in the same heartbeat. "You came back," he said quietly in English. Her throat tightened. "You remember me?" He nodded. "You shouted at me, told me to get inside." Her knees felt weak. "Did you know what was happening?" He shook his head. "Only that you didn't shoot me." She crouched beside him, trying to keep her voice steady. "Someone's trying to hurt you. I need to move you to a safe place." He studied her face as if measuring truth. "You look sad." "Sometimes soldiers are," she said. Outside, engines growled. Dr. Noor looked through the blinds, frowning. "Trucks, same men from yesterday." Kira's instincts kicked in. "Get the children to the basement, now." Noor didn't argue. Kira pulled her pistol, checked the chamber, and positioned herself near the window. Through the glass, she counted 4 men, 2 with rifles, 2 scanning the doorway. They weren't local militia. Their movements were too deliberate. "Contractors." The first man stepped forward, knocking hard. Dr. Noor froze. Kira motioned for silence. The man outside called in broken Arabic, "We're looking for the American." Kira's pulse slowed, the calm before every storm. She whispered to Noor, "Basement, now." Then she moved. When the door burst open, the first man barely had time to raise his weapon. Kira fired once, shoulder non-fatal. The second ducked and returned fire blindly. Plaster exploded around her. Children screamed from below. She dove behind the counter, shifted position, and shot twice through the wall. Both hits. Footsteps retreated, tires screeched. Then silence. She exhaled slowly. The smell of gunpowder hung heavy. Dr. Noor emerged, shaking. You killed them." "No," Kira said, "just scared them." Noor stared. "Who are you?" Kira looked at the boy. "Someone who owes him a life." That night, they hid in the ruins of an old school north of the river. Noor tended the wounded guard. Samir slept curled beside an old chalkboard. Kira sat near the broken window, rifle resting on her knees, eyes scanning the skyline. Nadia's voice echoed in her mind. "Whatever you choose, make sure it's your choice, not theirs." She whispered to the empty room, "This is mine." For the first time, she meant it. Back in Virginia, Hendrik stood in the operations center, staring at a satellite feed from Mosul. A heat signature, single shooter, Small Arms Exchange Clinic District. Nadia leaned beside him, headset in hand. It's her, isn't it? Hendricks nodded slowly. And whoever she's fighting isn't local. So what do we do? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze lingered on the screen, one bright dot moving through darkness, carrying something that looked like purpose. Finally, he said, we let her finish what she started, then we bring her home whatever's left of her. That night, Kira looked down at the boy, sleeping peacefully for the first time in years. She whispered, I don't know who sent me that photo, but they gave me back the one thing I thought I'd lost. She looked at her scar, then at the rifle beside her. Joyce. Outside, the wind shifted soft, almost kind. And for a moment, the ghost of Black Talon faded just enough for Kira Vance to breathe again. Dawn came quietly, the kind that fools you into thinking peace has finally arrived. A pale sun climbed over the ruins of Mosul, turning the shattered buildings gold for a few fleeting minutes. Kira Vance stood in the old school's courtyard, scanning the rooftops beyond the river. Her rifle rested across her chest, breath slow, steady. She knew this stillness. It never lasted. Behind her, Dr. Noor packed supplies into crates. The wounded guard lay sleeping, and near the doorway, Samir drew shapes into the dust, spirals and stars, and something that looked like a bird taking flight. Kira crouched beside him. What's that? He smiled without looking up. A hawk. Why a hawk? Because it never lands where it's not supposed to, he said simply. Kira felt something twist inside her chest. Small, painful, beautiful. She touched the scar on her arm, then whispered, let's hope it never has to. The first explosion shattered the quiet. Dust rained from the ceiling. Windows blew inward in a glitter of glass and sunlight. Kira's instincts took over. Down, she yelled. She dragged Samir under the table, motioned to Noor to stay low. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard engines, 3 trucks, closing fast. Not local militia. Not random. Precision. Her earpiece, long silent, suddenly crackled to life. Lieutenant Vance, a voice said, you've violated operational protocol. You are ordered to stand down and surrender custody of the subject. Kira froze. The voice was calm, detached, bureaucratic. Who is this? Command Liaison, Joint Task Coordination. The boy is an asset of interest. You will relinquish him immediately. She felt the old anger rise. He's not an asset. Then consider him collateral. The line went dead. Outside, footsteps approached, tactical, measured, closing in from both sides. Kira pulled Noor and Samir toward the stairwell. Basement, now. Noor hesitated. Who are they? People who think the world belongs to whoever's left standing. She took position by the window, scanning the street. 6 men, body armor, same insignia she'd seen on Cole's vest. Private American. Her jaw clenched, of course. The first 2 moved toward the door. She waited until they breached the threshold. 2 shots. 2 bodies down. Move, she hissed, retreating toward the stairwell. The others opened fire, bullets tearing through chalk dust and splintered desks. She counted them, 4 left, spreading out, flanking. They were trained, professional, not insurgents. Her own kind. In the basement, Noor and Samir crouched behind an overturned table. The child clutched the drawing of the hawk, trembling but silent. Kira slid down the last step, breathing hard. Stay here, she said. If they get through me, there's a tunnel behind the boiler. It leads to the river. Noor grabbed her wrist. You can't hold them alone. Kira met her eyes. That's what they said last time. Noor's voice broke. And what did it cost you then? Kira looked at Samir, then back at her. Everything, but I got it back. She climbed halfway up the stairs, rifle steady. Footsteps above, careful, disciplined. She waited. The first shadow appeared. She fired once, then ducked back as bullets ripped the plaster above her head. Her heart pounded, her breathing stayed even. In, hold, out. She moved again, 2 steps, pivot, fire. Another hit. Silence. Then a voice. Female, calm, familiar. Kira. Kira froze. Drop your weapon, the voice said. You don't need to die here. The sound drifted from the stairwell's edge, and when the speaker stepped into view, the world seemed to tilt. Nadia Reeves. For a heartbeat, Kira couldn't move. Nadia. The other woman's expression was hard, her uniform stripped of insignia. They said you'd run. I told them you wouldn't make it far. Kira's voice dropped. They sent you. They said you'd gone rogue, that the boy was a threat. And you believed them. I believe in orders, Nadia said, though her voice trembled just slightly. Kira lowered her rifle a fraction. They lied. He's just a child. They're cleaning up evidence, not saving lives. Nadia hesitated, eyes flicking toward the basement door. Then why are they calling him an asset? Because he saw something he wasn't supposed to. What? Kira exhaled slowly. Me. For a long second, they stared at each other, 2 soldiers caught between orders and truth. Then Nadia's comm buzzed. Reeves' status. She turned her head. That was enough. Kira moved. Not to attack, to disarm. A flash of motion, a clash of metal. The rifle clattered away. They struggled, training meeting training, strength meeting guilt. Finally, Kira pinned her against the wall, panting. You have to trust me, Kira said. I did, Nadia whispered, until they showed me your file. They showed you what they needed you to see. Silence. Then from outside, another explosion, closer this time. Nadia's comm blared. Reeves, stand down, primary target extraction imminent. Lethal force authorized. Nadia looked at her, realization dawning slow and sharp. They're not here for him, are they? Kira shook her head. No, they're here for me. Nadia's jaw tightened. Then she handed Kira her sidearm. Go, she said. Take the boy, I'll buy you time. Kira blinked. You'll be court-martialed. Nadia's smile was faint, bitter. Only if I live long enough. Their eyes met, understanding, forgiveness, farewell. Kira nodded once. I'll find you when it's over. Nadia smirked. You won't have to, I'll find you first. Kira sprinted back to the basement. Time to move, she told Noor. They slipped through the narrow tunnel behind the boiler, air thick with dust, the sound of gunfire muffled but close. The tunnel opened into daylight by the riverbank. The smell of oil and salt filled the air. Kira led them down to the water's edge, where an old fishing skiff waited, half-submerged but serviceable. Get in, she said. Noor climbed aboard, pulling Samir with her. Kira pushed the boat into the current, then turned back toward the ruins. Smoke rose from the school. No movement. No radio chatter. Just silence. She stood there for a long time, watching the boat drift downstream, carrying the boy and the doctor toward safety. For once, she didn't reach for her rifle. Her hands fell to her sides, empty. The wind lifted dust across her boots, carrying the faintest echo of voices she used to know, laughter, orders, prayers. She whispered, "Stay quiet, Black Talon, you've done enough." Hours later, as the sun bled into the horizon, she crossed into the outskirts of the city. A convoy waited there, armored trucks, engines idling. At their head stood General Hendricks. "You never were good at staying buried," he said. She stopped 10 feet away. "You sent them after me." "I sent her after you," Hendricks said softly. "The rest came uninvited." "Where is she?" He hesitated. "Nadia didn't make it." The words hit like shrapnel, quiet, precise, irreversible. Kira's breath trembled once, then steadied. "She bought you time," Hendricks continued. You could have run. I did, she said, just not far enough. He studied her expression unreadable. You've gone off record, broken chain of command, violated half the book. Kira nodded, and saved a life. He sighed, that's not how this system measures success. Then maybe the system's broken, she said. Hendrix's eyes softened just barely. You think this ends with you walking away? She looked past him at the trucks, at the soldiers who wouldn't meet her gaze. I don't care how it ends, she said, just that it means something. They didn't handcuff her, they didn't need to. She climbed into the transport willingly. As the convoy rolled toward the airfield, the city lights flickered through the windows, reflections of a place rebuilding itself the same way she wished she could. Outside, thunder growled again, another storm coming. Hours later, a cell door closed with a metallic click. Concrete walls, single cot, one small window facing east. She sat on the bed, elbows on knees, head bowed. Through the narrow slit of light, she could see the horizon turning from black to gray. Another dawn. Another chance to remember who she used to be. When the door opened, she didn't look up. Nadia Reeves stood there, alive, bruised, tired, smiling. Told you I'd find you first, she said. Kira exhaled, the first real breath she'd taken in days. How? Complicated paperwork, a few friends in the right offices, and one general who doesn't follow every rule. Hendrix appeared behind her, arms crossed. You two caused enough chaos to fuel a Senate hearing. Then maybe they'll finally ask the right questions, Kira said. Hendrix didn't argue, he just set a file on the table. Inside, clearance papers, discharge recommendation, civilian reintegration program. You're done, Lieutenant, he said, officially this time. Kira looked up, and unofficially. He paused, let's call it redemption. Weeks later, she stood on a cliff overlooking the Virginia coast. Waves crashed below, gulls circled above. Nadia stood beside her, coffee in hand, both of them in civilian clothes for the first time in years. What will you do now? Nadia asked. Kira smiled faintly. Teach, maybe fishing. Fishing. Something that doesn't shoot back. They both laughed softly, not out of humor but out of release. The wind carried the scent of salt and rain. Kira closed her eyes and listened. For the first time in a long time, silence didn't sound like guilt. It sounded like peace. Later that night, she opened a small box she kept in her jacket pocket. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Samir's drawing, the hawk. She smoothed the creases carefully, staring at the simple lines that had somehow survived fire, blood, and bureaucracy. Beneath it, she wrote 5 words in pencil. Freedom never comes clean. Then she folded it again and set it back inside. The next morning, the news ran a brief story. A classified humanitarian extraction in northern Iraq saves 20 civilians from a militia raid. Sources unidentified. Kira turned off the television before the segment ended. She stepped outside barefoot, letting the cold grass bite against her skin. The wind off the ocean felt sharp, alive. Somewhere behind her, Nadia called, "Coffee, getting cold." Kira smiled, "Let it." She watched the horizon turn gold again, the same way it had that morning in Mosul, except this time, no explosions followed. Just the steady pulse of a world that finally didn't need her rifle. Her voice, calm, reflective, closed the story like a whisper carried by tide and wind. They laughed when I asked for a rifle. They stopped laughing when they saw the scar. And the general, he whispered a name I thought I'd buried. But names don't define us. Choices do. I was Black Talon once. But now I'm just human. And sometimes that's the hardest mission of all. The waves answered like applause. And in the quiet that followed, the story ended not with a shot. but with a breath, because sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.